If you're new to fly fishing, I want to share with you 5 tips that a professional shared with me years ago that early on helped a ton to get me to the point where now I can cast farther and accurate every time. Let's start with tip number 1, use your thumb. You might think gripping a fly rod is like gripping a hammer like this, but that's not how I recommend it. I recommend placing your thumb on the back of the handle like this. By doing this, it gives me more control and it generates more power during a cast than it would gripping it like this. So remember, before making a cast, place your thumb on the back of the handle and that grip is going to be rock solid, which brings us to tip number 2, stand parallel to the cast. What I mean by standing parallel to your cast is to stand like this. So you can see as I'm casting, that cast is parallel to my body as I'm perpendicular to the water. Can you cast a fly rod facing forward? Of course, that's how I fish most of the time, but there are a couple of reasons, especially for beginners, why I recommend standing the other way. First is watching your back cast area. You might have trees, tall grass, rocks, stuff that's gonna get hung up on your line if you're not paying attention to where it's going. Even nowadays, I will fish like this if I have a lot of obstacles behind me, just so I can keep an eye on that line, just to make sure it's not gonna get tangled up. But more importantly for beginners, you're not sure what that line is doing behind you enough to know when to make that forward cast. This is something I really struggled with when I was first getting into fly fishing. So early on, by standing parallel to the cast, I could begin to build a muscle memory in my body and my mind to know what the line looks like and feels like when it's time to make that forward cast. So what I would recommend for you early on is to stand parallel to your cast so that you can keep an eye on your obstacles in the back cast, but then also build that mind and body muscle memory to know what the line looks and feels like before you start making those forward casts. Which brings us to tip number 3, the 10 and 2 motion. And the 10 and 2 motion looks like this, the tip of the rod moving from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and back and forth as that line gains power through the rod as it's making its way out to its target. And when you're brand new to fly fishing, what I would recommend is to start with one length of the rod in terms of how much line you have out there. So I'll go ahead and strip one rod length out. I'm dealing with a 9-foot fly rod, this is 7 weight. Now that I've got that out there, let's talk about the 10 and 2. The motion should be crisp and powerful, generating power in the rod that's being transferred to the line, carrying the fly to its target. Unlike conventional fishing, the line is what carries the lure over the water. The 10 and 2 motion is the best way of maximizing the rod's power as it keeps the line straight, going backward and forward. Now what you don't want to do is moving the rod like this in this dramatic overarching motion. I did this a lot early on and I see a lot of young anglers doing this as well. You never get a good cast from doing it like this. And to make this thing work properly, it's a combination of your wrist, elbow, and shoulder all working together to make that 10 and 2 motion that's creating the power that your line's going to need to get the fly to its target. Notice when I have more line pulled out, it rolls in and out in a generally straight line. Well, you can only get that kind of result by doing the 10 and 2 motion. But you can only get that kind of result with a lot of power in the cast, which brings me to tip number 4, equal and adequate power during casts. To make a good cast with a fly rod, you have to generate enough power with the rod so the line will do what you want it to, but that power has to be equal in both directions, and this is something that really bothered me when I first started fly fishing. In particular on the back cast, it was easy to build up momentum on the forward cast, but not so much on the back cast. However, it is very important that the energy produced on the back cast matches the forward cast. A huge part of this is making sure that your line is fully loaded with the power generated by the rod. And using this demonstration, this point is where the line is fully loaded with the power from the rod, and I'm ready to make that forward cast. Now with each false cast, which is what I'm doing right here, this is false casting, each consecutive false cast is going to take a little bit longer to load because I'm letting more and more line out. And if I jump the gun a tad early before the line is fully loaded, or if I wait a little bit too long, allowing the momentum to die down, in either scenario, it's going to end in a failed cast. So be sure you're creating enough energy to make a good cast both backward and forward, and it might take you some time to figure out how much energy you actually need to make a good cast, but the more you keep at it, the more you practice, you'll be adding more and more line to your rod with each cast, and before you know it, you're going to be casting distances you didn't think possible. But with that added line, there's going to be a lot more slack during your cast, which brings us to tip number 5, lock down your non-casting arm. What I want to do with my non-casting arm, which is my left arm, is to keep it at a 90-degree angle around my lower torso, allowing the line to slide through my hand with every forward cast. The reason I keep my arm in that position is if I cast with both hands moving together, that slack line can get wrapped around the rod and reel, limiting how effective my cast is. Keeping my left arm down and still helps me control the line, decreasing the chances of it getting wrapped around the rod and reel, which is all great, but what if you're short on time? Well, I've got a 6 bonus tip for you guys to practice at home if you've got 15 minutes. And this tip is called target practice. All you got to do is tie a piece of foam or cloth onto the end of your leader, and I would recommend using really cheap mono. Don't use expensive leaders because that's a waste of money. And once you get that tied on there, go find yourself a target like a ball or a tire swing, your dog, your kid, or like what I'm going to use as a rock. Set your line at the distance you want and practice casting towards it. Even if you don't have time to go fishing, carve out a few minutes each day so you can improve on your accuracy and power to perfect your cast. But what if you're fishing in a spot that has no back cast area? Check out my video on the bow and arrow cast. This is perfect for tight spaces. I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.